Another devastating day on North American stock markets. Billions more in wealth wiped out. Why is nothing working to stop the fall? Hello, and thank you for joining us. Well, for most of the day, the markets were behaving themselves, but then something went extraordinarily sour in the final minutes. The Toronto Stock Exchange resumed its huge triple-digit losses, and the Dow in New York had its 7th straight trading day of numbers like this. Trillions of dollars in wealth are being wiped out, and nothing policymakers' attempt is stopping it so far. CanWest News national correspondent David Aiken has been looking around for some explanation of why the markets again fell off the edge, David.
Yeah, I was phoning around Bay Street all this afternoon, Kevin, at the end of the day, trying to find out from the professionals what is going on here. How did the markets go south so fast, so hard in the last hour of trading? And you know what? They really don't have many easy answers. There was no data point. There was no speech. If there was anything, it was a report about General Motors. Credit rating agencies downgraded General Motors' debt, and General Motors' stock touched a low the GM hasn't seen in 50 years. That's 50 years. One trader I spoke to who said he was watching it, he said it was terrifying. That's his word. Another trader said that what we're seeing here is a complete lack of investor confidence. Kevin?
You know, day after day of this, I think the market's lost almost 40% in value from a year ago. The only question anybody cares about is how low can it go?
There is no sugarcoating this. No one knows. This is, as I said, nobody's got the answers for this problem, and no one knows how low it can go. Now, finance ministers from around the world, including Canada's Jim Flaherty, are going to be in Washington over the weekend. They're going to try and figure out what sort of policy response there might be to turn around this tide on this global crisis. But traders on the street are now saying that we are well past the point where there is anything that a central bank or a government could do. The market's just going to have to find its bottom. It's just going to have to, in their words, sell itself out. Where that ends, Kevin, no one knows.
All right, David, thank you very much. The value of our dollar is also sinking fast. An unusually steep 2-cent drop today. It has lost a total of 7 cents in value so far this month. And here are the other developments in the confidence crisis. The U.S. Treasury Department is actively looking at buying into some American banks under the new $700 billion bailout law. Canada has been ranked the least likely to need action like that. That's important. The World Economic Forum lists our banking system as the world's soundest. But our finance minister now admits the worsening credit crisis could soon make it tougher for Canadians to get mortgages and car loans.
The disruption of global credit markets that originated in the United States will continue to have spillover effects on Canadian financial institutions.
Well, on top of all the money our economy is losing, we finally learned today a truer cost of the Afghan war. And it's much more than governments have told you. The release of the previously hidden number came as a result of reporting Global National did several weeks ago that helped force the estimate from Parliament's Budget Office into the open in time for you to cast your ballot. And it pegs the cost to 2011 at somewhere between $14 and $18 billion. That's about double the government's previous estimate. And it comes as another of our allies issues a grim assessment of the coalition's chances of winning. U.S. intelligence agencies say Afghanistan is in a downward spiral. Ottawa Bureau Chief Jacques Bourbeau has the long-awaited financial details. Jacques?
Kevin, when MPs were debating last March whether to extend the Afghan mission, they were missing a crucial piece of information. Just how much is it costing Canadian taxpayers?
For these soldiers, their Afghan tour of duty is over, returning home last night to the arms of their families. But the mission they left behind in Afghanistan continues. A mission Canadians learned today has a multi-billion-dollar price tag.
If you took a midpoint between our average of roughly 14 to 18 billion, you'd be looking at something probably close to 200 million per month.
The figures were compiled by Canada's new parliamentary budget officer. But Kevin Page says even he's not sure his numbers are accurate. He complains of a lack of reliable data, inaccurate financial reporting, and discrepancies. One example, National Defence told Parliament the military costs of the Afghan mission were $2.7 billion, but their own internal books pegged the cost at $4.6 billion.
I think it makes it very difficult to do effective oversight when you don't have the kind of transparency and the right accounting practices.
We're making decisions based on not only inadequate information, we're making decisions on downright wrong information. And so if we had better information, we will make better decisions.
Retired Colonel Ian Capstick served in Afghanistan, and he's not surprised the final bill is much higher than anyone thought.
Nobody in the Canadian Army thought that tanks had a real future in the kind of conflicts that we're in. We learned the lesson on the ground. So, of course, that causes the cost to rise.
Until now, the government's best guess for the cost of this war was $8 billion. Now we know the price tag is much higher. The question being asked, how do we pay for it?
If we're going to spend all this money on Afghanistan and we're running into problems with the budget, does that mean we're going to run a deficit? Does that mean we're going to start cutting other social programs to fund the war? Could it mean tax increases?
But Canada's finance minister says none of that will be necessary.
I'm satisfied that we have a good handle on the actual costs that we will incur over the course of the next couple of years.
This report almost wasn't released because of the election. But in a Global National exclusive report, Kevin Page said he was willing to make his numbers public if all party leaders agreed, which they did. But the MP who asked for this report says he wishes these numbers had been available when Parliament was debating whether to extend the mission.
That's a huge shift, and that would have affected the debate.